My wife cheated on me with our lawyer, draining $200, $0 from my accounts to fund her secret new life. Now she's suing me for half our property after I found out she documents during the divorce. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation where my wife would turn out to be cheating on me with our own lawyer, and that she'd drain over 200 grand from our accounts to fund her secret new life. Honestly, the whole thing feels like a bad movie, but it's my life. I want to get this out because I know there are others out there who might be going through something similar, and maybe hearing my story can help them see the signs before it's too late. And I had been together for about 8 years. We met in college, got married shortly after, and for the most part I thought we had a good life. We had a nice house, decent jobs, and like most couples we had our fights, but nothing that seemed insurmountable. At least, that's what I thought. Looking back, there were little things, small lies, weird excuses, her being overly secretive about her phone that I brushed off. I guess I wanted to believe that everything was fine because I loved her and because we had built a life together. Things started to change about 3 months ago, became more distant, less affectionate, and she started working late more often. She'd come home tired, sometimes smelling like perfume I didn't recognize. She'd brush off my questions, saying she was tired or stressed. I figured it was just work pressure, but deep down I felt something was off. Still, I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I mean, everyone has their bad days, right? Then I noticed her bank statements. Small transactions, first 50 here, $100 there. Nothing huge at first. But then I saw a pattern. Large withdrawals, over $10, $0 at a time, going to accounts I didn't recognize. I asked her about it, and she told me she was investing in some new business venture, a secret project she didn't want to tell me about. She said it was just her trying to get ahead, and I bought it because I trusted her. We had always been open about money, or so I thought. But last week, I accidentally found something that shattered everything. I was using her laptop to print some documents for work, and I noticed she had left her email open. I saw a string of emails between her and our lawyer, Mark, discussing a divorce agreement and property settlement. My stomach dropped. I didn't even know she was talking to a lawyer about divorce. My heart started pounding. How could I miss these signs? I started digging more. I went through her phone, her emails, her social media. That's when I found the messages, flirty texts, secret rendezvous, and explicit conversations with Mark. I couldn't believe it. My wife, who always acted like she was so devoted, was secretly screwing our lawyer and planning her escape route. The worst part, she was draining our savings to fund her new life. Over $200, $0 gone, literally evaporated into some secret account she'd set up. And she had the nerve to lie outright when I confronted her. I confronted her last night in the worst way possible. I told her I knew everything, that I'd seen her messages, her bank withdrawals, her lies. She looked at me with this cold, bitchy look and said, "You're overreacting, Jason. You don't understand how stressful all this is. I've been trying to fix things, but you're just so clueless." That was the moment I realized she had no remorse, no shame, just that bitchy attitude that she always had when she wanted to dismiss me. She even had the audacity to tell me I was paranoid, that I was imagining things, that she loved me but needed her space. The shock was overwhelming. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I couldn't believe the woman I married, the woman I trusted with everything, was actually betraying me this way. The anger bubbled up, then turned into a deep, aching sadness. I kept asking myself, how did I miss all the signs? Was I so blind? Did I mean nothing to her? It's like my whole world crumbled in that moment, and all I could do was stare at her, trying to process what I'd just learned. I spent the night awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious. The worst part, she's now suing me for half the property, claiming I documents during the divorce, trying to steal from me after all her lies. I don't even know who she is anymore. I thought I knew my wife, but now I realize I was living with a stranger who was secretly plotting her escape, draining my savings and lying through her teeth. The pain is indescribable, but I know one thing: this isn't over. I'm going to fight back. The morning after the confrontation, I felt like I'd been run over by a truck. My head was pounding, my stomach was in knots, and every time I looked at her, There was this mix of rage and disbelief bubbling inside me. I couldn't believe I had been so blind, so naive. For years, I thought we had a solid foundation, but it turns out she was building her escape plan right under my nose. And now she was trying to make it seem like I was the one at fault. I knew I had to act fast. The first thing I did was get a copy of all the bank statements, emails, and documents I could find. I wanted proof, hard evidence of what she'd been doing. I also contacted a lawyer, a guy I found through a friend who had handled similar cases. His name is David, and he's sharp as hell. I told him everything I knew, handed him the evidence, and asked what my options were. The legal world is complicated, but I knew I needed to get ahead of this before she could spin her lies any further. While I was on the phone with David, I couldn't help but think about how I'd lied so effortlessly. She kept spinning stories about how she was trying to fix things, or how the lawyer was just helping her with some legal stuff. But I knew better now. The texts, the withdrawals, the documents, she'd been lying about everything. I felt like a fool, but at the same time I was furious. How could she do this to me, to us? After everything we built, she just threw it all away for some secret affair and her new life. Over the next few days, I started digging deeper into her finances and her activities. I hired a private investigator, just in case she was planning to disappear entirely. I also checked her phone records, her social media, and even followed her a couple of times just to see what she was up to. Every step confirmed what I suspected. She was actively sneaking around, meeting with Mark and funneling money into some offshore account. It was like watching a slow-motion train wreck, and I couldn't do anything to stop it fast enough. Meanwhile, kept lying. She told mutual friends she was under a lot of stress, that I was controlling, and that she was just trying to find herself. She painted herself as the victim, like I was some jealous, paranoid husband. She even had the nerve to call me from time to time, acting sweet and innocent, trying to convince me she was trying to fix things and wanted to save our marriage. But I saw right through her. Her voice was too smooth, too fake. I knew she was just trying to manipulate me, to buy herself some more time. One of the biggest shocks came when I discovered she had secretly been seeing Mark outside of their work meetings. I found messages where they arranged secret dinners, exchanged flirtatious texts, and even talked about what they could do once she was free. I couldn't believe she'd been so brazen about it. That lawyer, Mark, who was supposed to be helping us with the divorce, was actually helping her cheat on me and drain my accounts. I felt sick thinking about how close I was to losing everything: my house, my savings, even my dignity. I also found out she'd some documents during the divorce process. She'd changed figures, altered signatures, and even created fake affidavits to make herself look better. That's how she was able to get away with draining so much money. She thought she could just manipulate her way out of everything, but I was starting to see through her lies now. I felt betrayed in ways I never thought possible. It's like I was living with a different person, someone who was manipulative, selfish, and willing to destroy everything we had built just for her own selfish needs. The more I uncovered, the angrier I got. But I also knew I had to stay calm and focused. I couldn't let her see how much this was affecting me, at least not yet. I had to gather all my evidence, prepare my case, and protect what was mine. My house, my savings, my reputation. I wasn't going to let her walk away with everything she wanted just because she lied and cheated her way through it. I also started thinking about the emotional toll this was taking on me. I'd always been a steady, rational person, but this betrayal hit me hard. I felt humiliated, angry, and deeply hurt. I kept asking myself what I'd done wrong. Was I not enough? Did I miss the signs, or was she just always this way? I kept replaying our conversations, trying to find where I went wrong, but I couldn't find an answer. All I knew was that I had to fight back. I had to stand up for myself and stop her from stealing my life piece by piece. Now I'm at a point where I'm planning my next move. I've got the evidence, and I'm ready to fight her in court. I know she's trying to spin things her way, but I have enough proof to show she's been lying from the start. The thing is, I don't know how far she's willing to go. She's already drained my savings, documents, and lied about her own actions. I just hope I can stop her before she ruins me completely. The betrayal cuts deep, but I refuse to let her win. I still believe in the truth, and I'm determined to see this through to the end, no matter how ugly it gets. After gathering all the evidence I could, I realized I needed a solid legal strategy. Lies and her attempt to manipulate the legal system meant I couldn't just confront her and expect things to go smoothly. I hired a new lawyer, someone who specializes in divorce fraud and financial crimes, and started preparing for the battle ahead. The more I dug into her financial activities, the clearer it became how deeply she'd lied and manipulated the system. She documents, siphoned off money, and even put assets into fake names to hide everything. The first major blow came when I discovered she had set up a secret offshore account, probably with the money she drained from our joint accounts. I found evidence of transfers, wire receipts, and even some suspicious deposits into a bank in the islands. I couldn't believe she'd gone to such lengths to hide her tracks. The betrayal was so deep I felt like I was living in a nightmare. How could the woman I married do something so calculated and cold? I was furious. But I also knew I had to stay calm and methodical. I started compiling everything: bank statements, emails, text messages, fake documents she created, and even witness testimonies from friends who knew about her secret meetings with Mark. I wanted a comprehensive case to prove her deception and illegal activities. Meanwhile, was trying to keep up her act, lying to friends and family about how stressed she was and how things just didn't work out. She even accused me of being controlling and paranoid, which made me want to scream. She was spinning her web of lies, and I knew I had to counter every single one with hard facts. One day, I caught her in a major lie. She told our friends that she was planning a business trip for a week, but I found out she was actually meeting Mark in a hotel in downtown Chicago. I followed her that night just to see what she was up to, and sure enough, she was with him. They were in a room together, laughing and holding hands. That was the moment I realized she'd been lying to everyone, including me, about her stress, her work, and her need for space. She was actively cheating, draining our money, and planning her escape all at once. It was around this time I also found out she had been falsifying some of the divorce documents. She changed the property valuations, altered signatures, and even forged some signatures of witnesses to make her look more favorable. I was sick to my stomach. It was clear she was willing to do anything to get her way, even cheat, lie, and steal. I felt helpless but also more determined than ever to fight her in court and expose her lies. The emotional toll was heavy. I felt betrayed on every level, by her, by the system, by myself for missing the signs. I kept thinking about all the memories we shared and how she had turned into this manipulative, selfish person. But I also realized I couldn't let her win. I had to stand my ground, protect what was mine, and hold her accountable for her actions. One of the most shocking revelations came when I discovered she had contacted a private investigator to try to get dirt on me, trying to paint me as unstable or abusive to weaken my case. I found some of the emails she sent to him, trying to frame me for things I never did. It was clear she was desperate, willing to go to any lengths to save herself. That made me even more determined to fight her, because I knew she wouldn't stop until she got what she wanted: her freedom, her money, her new life. I also started to realize how much this whole ordeal was affecting me emotionally. I'd always been a steady, rational person, but now I was angry, hurt, and exhausted. I kept questioning everything: how I didn't see her true nature, how I missed the signs, and if I could ever trust again. But deep down, I knew I had to stay strong for myself and for any chance of getting justice. Now I'm at a point where I'm ready to go to court. I've got the evidence, I've hired the right legal team, and I'm prepared to fight for my rights. But I also know isn't going to give up easily. She's already lied and manipulated her way this far. I just hope the truth will come out and that I can get some semblance of justice. It's been a brutal ride so far, but I refuse to let her destroy me completely. The thing is, I've learned that sometimes you have to fight dirty to get back what's yours, and I'm ready to do just that. The court date finally arrived after what felt like an eternity of legal battles, evidence gathering, and sleepless nights. I was nervous, but more than anything, I was determined. Lies had gone on far too long, and I was ready to expose her for what she truly was. I had everything laid out, proof of her documents, the offshore accounts, the secret meetings with Mark, and the drained bank accounts. I knew she'd try to spin a story, but I also knew I had enough to counter her every lie. During the hearing, sat there with her usual bitchy smirk, trying to act innocent. She played the victim card, claiming I was abusive, controlling, and that her actions were just desperate attempts to find herself. She even had the audacity to cry fake tears when the judge asked her about the missing money. But I kept my composure and presented my evidence. I was meticulous, laying out the timeline, showing her documents, and explaining how she had drained our savings to fund her affair and her new life. The judge listened carefully, and I could see the wheels turning in her head. When I finished, I watched her face drain of color as I exposed her lies. I saw her lawyer start to panic, realizing she was losing ground. I also brought forward witnesses, mutual friends who knew about her secret meetings with Mark, and even a couple of her former colleagues who confirmed she'd been falsifying documents during the divorce process. The most damning evidence was the bank transfer records and the offshore account details. I proved that she had transferred over $200, $0 into that account, and that she'd lied about the source of her funds. I also presented emails showing her conspiring with Mark, planning their getaway, and falsifying documents to hide her assets. The courtroom was silent as I laid it all out, and I could see the judge taking notes, processing everything. His lawyer tried to argue that I had misrepresented facts and that I was trying to ruin her reputation, but the judge wasn't buying it. The evidence was overwhelming. His lies crumbled under the weight of the truth. When the judge finally ruled, she ordered to return the stolen money, her documents, and dismissed her claims for the property she was trying to steal. She was also ordered to pay court costs and damages for her fraudulent activities. But the story didn't end there. Furious and humiliated, immediately filed an appeal, claiming she was wrongfully accused and that her actions were just a misunderstanding. That's when I realized she wasn't going down without a fight. She was already planning her next move, probably trying to find new ways to manipulate the system and keep her new life afloat. In the aftermath, I felt a strange mix of relief and exhaustion. The truth had come out and I had fought hard to protect what was mine. But I also felt betrayed on a deeper level. The woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew, had lied to me for months, maybe years. She'd been unfaithful, manipulative, and willing to destroy everything for her own selfish goals. It was a bitter pill to swallow. I started to rebuild what I could. I closed her offshore account, secured my assets, and took steps to protect myself legally from any future accusations or attempts at manipulation. I also began therapy, something I never thought I'd need, but I realized I had to process all this emotionally. The betrayal cut deep, and I needed to heal from it. One thing I learned from all this is that trust is fragile. When it's broken, it's almost impossible to repair without the truth coming out. I also learned that some people will do anything to get what they want: money, freedom, a new life, even if it means lying, cheating, and falsifying documents. But I also learned that the truth has a way of surfacing, no matter how deep you bury it. And when it does, justice will follow, even if it takes everything you've got. Now I'm trying to move on. I know I'll never forget what happened, but I refuse to let it define me. I'm rebuilding my life piece by piece, and I'm more cautious now about who I trust. My advice to anyone reading this: don't ignore the signs. If you feel something off, dig deeper. Because when the truth finally comes out, it can destroy everything, unless you're prepared to fight for what's right. After the court ruling, I thought I'd finally get some peace. I was wrong. His reaction to losing the case was just the beginning of her next move. She didn't take it lying down. Within days, she filed a countersuit, claiming I'd documents during the divorce, something she'd supposedly uncovered while she was investigating her own case. She argued that I was trying to manipulate the system and steal even more from her. The audacity of this woman. It was like she was trying to turn the entire thing into a game of smoke and mirrors, hoping I'd get tired or lose my nerve. I knew I had to be ready for her next tactic. I contacted my lawyer, David, and we started preparing for another legal battle, this time defending myself against her baseless accusations. I knew she'd try to muddy the waters, to paint me as some kind of fraud, and I had to stay one step ahead. I dug into every document, every email, every piece of evidence I had to ensure I was airtight. I also hired a forensic accountant to review our financials in detail, making sure there were no hidden tricks or manipulations on my part. I couldn't let her spin this into another victory for herself. Meanwhile, behavior grew more erratic. She was posting cryptic messages on social media, talking about fighting for what's right and exposing lies. But really, she was just trying to stir up trouble. I heard from some mutual friends that she was also trying to rally support, claiming I was harassing her and that I'd been controlling her during the marriage. It was classic projection. She was the one who'd been lying, cheating, and falsifying documents, but she was trying to make me look like the villain. I also found out she'd been contacting some of my acquaintances, trying to turn them against me. She sent them fake screenshots, false stories, even some doctored documents to support her claims. I was furious. I had trusted these people, and now she was trying to manipulate them into believing her lies. That's when I realized how far she was willing to go to destroy my reputation and keep her new life intact. The most shocking part was when I discovered she had been secretly recording some of our conversations. I found hidden voice recordings on her phone, conversations where she was trying to pressure me into giving her more money, or where she was threatening to ruin me if I didn't play along. She was even trying to use these recordings as leverage in court, claiming I'd been abusive or manipulative. I couldn't believe she'd stoop so low. She was willing to lie and manipulate just to save herself. Throughout all this, I felt a mixture of anger, frustration, and helplessness. I kept asking myself how I'd ever trusted her in the first place. How could she betray me so completely? It was like I'd been living with a stranger the entire time, but I also knew I couldn't let her win. I had to fight back, not just for myself, but for the truth. I kept reminding myself that I'd done nothing wrong. She was the one who lied, cheated in documents. I had to hold my ground. The legal process dragged on for months. Court hearings, depositions, evidence reviews. It was exhausting physically and emotionally. I was constantly on edge, waiting for her next move. She kept trying to discredit me, twisting facts, and throwing everything she had at me in hopes of winning her countersuit. But I had the truth, and I was determined to stick to it. I wasn't going to let her rewrite history or destroy what little integrity I had left. One night, after a particularly grueling day in court, I sat alone in my house. I looked around at the empty rooms, the photos of happier times, and felt this deep sense of loss. Not just for the marriage, but for the trust I'd lost in her, in myself, and in the whole system that I thought was supposed to protect honest people. It was a wake-up call. Trust is fragile, and sometimes people will do anything to get what they want, even if it means destroying everything in the process. But I also realized something else. This experience had made me stronger. I learned how to fight for myself, how to dig into the truth, and how to stand up against lies and manipulation. I wasn't going to be a victim anymore. I was going to see this through, no matter what. For every lie she told, I had proof. For every attempt she made to smear my name, I had facts. And in the end, the truth would come out. That's what I kept telling myself. I just had to hold on a little longer. The final court hearing was a whirlwind. His countersuit was dismissed outright once my lawyer laid out all the evidence, her documents, the offshore accounts, the recordings, and the witness testimonies. The judge was clear that her attempts to manipulate the system were not just unethical, they were illegal. She ordered her to pay back the stolen money, cover all court costs, and barred her from making any further claims against me. Watching her face twist with rage and disbelief during the ruling was almost satisfying, but mostly I felt exhausted, like I'd fought a war and finally seen some peace. After the dust settled, I finally felt a sense of closure. I moved out of the house we shared, not because I wanted to leave her behind, but because I couldn't stand the sight of the place where I'd been betrayed so deeply. I found a small apartment, just enough space to breathe and start over. I cut ties with most of her friends, those who believed her lies, and focused on rebuilding my life from scratch. It's not easy, but I knew I had no choice but to move forward. Emotionally, I was a wreck for a while. The betrayal cut so deep that I questioned everything: my judgment, my trust, even my worth. But over time, I realized that I was stronger than I thought. The experience taught me to be more cautious, to trust my instincts, and to never ignore the subtle signs of deception. I also learned that sometimes people will go to extraordinary lengths to hide their true nature, and that the truth always has a way of coming out, no matter how deep you bury it. I took a long break from dating, needing to focus on myself. But eventually, I started seeing a therapist who helped me process everything: the anger, the sadness, the humiliation. She reminded me that I wasn't at fault, that I deserved honesty and respect, and that I would find happiness again. Slowly, I began to rebuild my confidence piece by piece. Looking back, I realize how much I've learned from this ordeal. Trust is fragile, yes, but it's also worth fighting for if you're willing to do the work. The betrayal was a brutal lesson, but it also made me more resilient. I now know that not everyone is who they appear to be, and that sometimes the biggest lies are hidden behind the most convincing masks. To anyone reading this, if you suspect your partner is hiding something, don't ignore it. Dig deep, ask questions, and protect yourself. Because once the trust is broken, it's nearly impossible to repair without the truth coming to light. And when it does, be prepared to fight for what's right, because sometimes that's the only way to reclaim your life. Today, I'm healing. I'm rebuilding. And I'm finally free from the shadow of betrayal that once loomed over me. It's not an easy road, but I know now that I'm stronger than any lie, and that truth, no matter how hard, always finds a way to shine through.